Back to Open Line tonight. Here talking with ladies from Beacon Impact, Hannah Cox and Stephanie Whitt. Thank you for being here. We're talking about the Fresh Start legislation, which will go into effect July 1st. It passed both houses this past session, and the governor's signature is upon it. So again, July 1st is the date, and basically removing barriers for folks just coming out of prison to get those licenses they need in order to get into the workforce. And I mentioned before the break, I shouldn't say everyone, for a lot of people it comes down to money. What is this going to cost them as the taxpayer? What will these changes cost? Anything?
Well, the fiscal note on the bill had no cost to taxpayers on it, because all we're doing is sort of switching the burden from the individual to have to prove why they should get a license to the government to have to prove why they should be denied a license. And then also allowing a little bit of flexibility in the administrative process so that they can petition the board or licensing organization or agency earlier in the process rather than at the back end.
Do you feel like these licensing boards are ready to make this change and are thinking about how to practically do this now?
I think so. We had great conversations with the Department of Commerce and Insurance through this process. They kind of helped us review the bill. We've talked to the health-related boards. We talked to the Department of Health as well. I think they're ready to make that switch. I think that it's a shift in mindset too, that this change is coming, and people are going to have to be a little bit more flexible in the process. But what we really want to help are those that are applying, that want these jobs, and remove that barrier for them.
I was at a function with the Nashville Rescue Mission a few months ago, and a woman told her story. She was being spotlighted, and this kind of goes along with what you all are saying. She had been homeless, she had been an addict, but through the Nashville Rescue Mission she got on the right program to kind of pull herself out of that, and she ended up going back to school and getting her license, or getting her degree to be a dental hygienist. Then it came time to get her license, and she was basically shut down after she had spent this money and really gone through school and gotten just amazing grades and all of this backing, and she had worked for a dentist during this time, and he actually went with her and said, no, I really think, but I mean it took a long time to go through this process and the appeals, and finally she was able to get her license, and she's making great money now and really has turned her life around. But it almost didn't happen, and it almost sent her right back to where she started because she could not get a job. So this is what this is all about.
Yeah, and not everybody's going to have that person that's going to go to the board, and navigating the process is a huge part of what we're helping people do. And Hannah talks to folks every day that this impacts. The Fresh Start Act itself does set out an appeal process where you can go all the way to Chancery Court to see if you can get a denial overturned, and that's one thing that I think is really important that's not currently available for folks now.
Right, and I think one problem we consistently see with all systems of government is for somebody who's coming in who's not used to working in the system, it's really difficult to know where to go or where to turn if you're up against a wall. They don't really have a lot of resources. So we talk to desperate people all the time in Tennessee on various issues, but this especially, who they don't know where to turn, they don't know who to ask for help, they have no clue what to do when they're denied. And a lot of them just walk away because they don't know there is anything to do about it.
Well, and you know, if you've been a criminal, you've not come out on the winning side of a system before, and you've gone up against some pretty powerful players, and been on the losing side, and maybe rightly so, probably rightly so. But so when you're faced with that again, you're thinking, I'm just going to get voted down, right?
And also, I mean, the licensing burdens are sometimes so high that even getting the license is barely attainable for them. So you're looking at hundreds of hours of education, sometimes thousands of dollars in cost to get this license, and so anything else on top of that is insurmountable at times for them.
Yeah, and this legislation doesn't remove that. People still have to get the education. They've still got to pay the fees. This is just about getting to the next step, getting that license in hand. Let's head to the phones because this is Open Line. We always love taking your calls. Jack is on the line. Hi, Jack.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to start out briefly by saying that the hypocrisy of our political class is, as always, stunning. One of our local congresswomen, Marsha Blackburn, co-sponsored the bill, which I have renamed the Opioid Liberation Act, which was designed to prevent the DEA from stopping drug distributors from dumping opioids on unsuspecting populations. So that's the hypocrisy that's baked in to a lot of our politicians. On the other side of the coin, you have the state of Arizona, which has an adult parole program that they have given proper support to people when they get out. And instead of having a growing prison population that's been out of control, they've managed to save almost $500 million over an 8-year period. So instead of the ever-popular law and order approach, which does nothing wreak havoc for addiction. We need to change our direction entirely, which means our politicians have to get off their soapboxes, turn down the hypocrisy dial, and actually do something.
Jack, thank you for your 2 cents here. We do appreciate it. And I think that's what you all were saying earlier, is that obviously there are red flags. Things are not working here. When you look at the money we're spending and our crime rate, it doesn't add up. Something has to be done differently. I think that's what you all are really trying to dig in and change.
Well, we've seen in a lot of very red states, including Texas, that have pioneered criminal justice reform, we've seen amazing results. You know, we're at the brink where we have to do something. A third of our jails are overcrowded, another third at the brink. We, as he mentioned, have one of the highest opioid addiction populations in the country. So something has to give. And Texas was in this position about a decade ago and was looking at having to expand their prisons and spend millions and millions of dollars to open up new places to house people. And instead of doing that, they started really pulling back at the system and figuring out what they could do differently to actually reduce recidivism, to get people help when they needed help, use diversion programs for people with treatment issues or mental health issues, and make sure that we're actually addressing these root causes. And they've seen tremendous results. So we have, to some extent, tried to model that here in Tennessee.
How far does Tennessee have to go?
We've got a long way to go. As I mentioned, our stats are pretty dire, especially compared to the surrounding states around us. So we have a lot of work to do, but we have formed the Tennessee Coalition for Sensible Justice with a lot of bipartisan support and amazing organizations that are all coming together to address this from both the left and the right. And I think that we have a tremendous success rate so far, and we'll continue to see that.
Stephanie, you were mentioning some of those organizations, and it is really a diverse group.
It really is. And we go in to talk to legislators. It's they often laugh and they're saying, well, this is a motley crew that you have going on here, because we have the ACLU, we have the Beacon Center and Beacon Impact, we have the Tennessee County Services Association, the Nashville Chamber of Commerce, and Goodwill Industries. And so we really have this bipartisan coalition, and I don't know how many signatories we're up to as well that have joined.
About 16, both 16 national and state level signatories.
Organizations. And I think what we've all decided is that we can't just continue to do nothing, and that you can be both law and order and also have that reform-minded attitude when you approach this issue.
You guys got the Fresh Start legislation passed this go around. Last year was good as well. Tell me about that legislation.
So one thing I think that we do very well, and I'm very proud of, is we don't sit in a room and decide what's best for other people or what issues are hurting them the most. We actually go to the populations that are being affected by these issues. And so when we first launched this coalition, one thing that we were consistently hearing from our partners, our signatories, and the criminal justice population as a whole was that there was a law that basically said people lost their driver's license if they didn't pay back all of their fees and fines within 1 year of coming out of the prison system. That's very difficult to do when you're simply trying to find housing, get a job, get your kids back sometimes. They have a lot going on. And so that law was passed in 2012, and about 146,000 people had lost their license due to that during that time. Only 7% had managed to get it back because they just could not pay the fees and fines to get it back. So this prevented them from getting to a job, picking up their kids, going to a doctor, perhaps going back to school. So we actually overturned that law last year and created a new system where, as long as they are meeting their payments, they can have a hardship license where they can still get to those basic things. And again, not deter them from getting back on the trail to being a productive member of society again. Because all that would happen at the end of the day is most of them would still drive on a suspended license.
Sure.
They would get caught. They would be sent back for up to 180 days in prison. That's extraordinarily costly to the taxpayer, and then they just have more fees and fines when they came out. So it was a cycle that people couldn't get out of, and it wasn't doing anything for us as a society to actually reform criminals and actually get people to pay their fees and fines back. It wasn't accomplishing those things. So that was a huge one for us.
Yeah, and I think from the taxpayer's perspective, they should be concerned as well, because it costs about twice as much, or actually more than 2 times the amount of an average mortgage payment to house a single inmate in
For
Tennessee.
how long?
For a month. So the same amount that you'd pay for your mortgage, 2 times that at least to house one single inmate, and that is only going to continue to get more costly as time goes on.
That really brings it home when you talk about my mortgage payment. Yeah, for one inmate. That's actually 2 times my mortgage payment for one inmate. Wow.
And there are also a huge issue in Tennessee. We have a lot of 50% of the people in our jails right now are awaiting trial. So they haven't been convicted of anything. They've been charged with a crime. A lot of them are low-level, nonviolent drug offenses, and they are in prison right now, awaiting to get to trial. And we're paying for that every single day that they're in there. And there are some states who have taken an approach and had a less restrictive means, like ankle bracelet monitoring at home, constant checking in through the through different means of reporting mechanisms without having to house somebody. And we have to decide, are we just mad at them because they committed a crime, or are they really violent and they need to be in prison while they're awaiting trial? And that's something that we're taking a look at now as a coalition.
And I think people have a hard time distinguishing those two groups.
Right.
Because you will hear a story on the news, you'll think, throw that person away, toss away the key, be done with them. But the people who come in and out of that jail to be, booked and charged, most of the folks are pretty low-level offenders. And it is the question of, do you want to continue to house this person, or do you want to monitor them in some way, make sure they make their way back to court, and if they don't, then throw them in jail.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but some people, I feel like a lot of people don't understand how the criminal justice system works, what it really looks like. Do you all find that?
Absolutely, and myself included. Before we started working on these issues and I was talking to people who were coming out of the system, I didn't know very basic struggles that they had. I remember one of the girls we worked very closely with, Lindsay Holloway, who's been a spokesperson for us, and who's come out of the criminal justice system and made an amazing recovery. She was an addict, and when she was telling me about the struggles that she faced and that her husband faced coming out of the system, just trying to find somewhere to live, I had no clue it was so difficult for somebody coming out of the system to find a simple place to rent to live. And so when you start to put yourself in these people's shoes and you meet them and you're hearing about all the difficulties they face, it just changes your perception on the criminal justice system. When somebody serves their time, we don't need to continue to punish them when they come out and make it difficult for them to do the right thing. That's just working backwards. So I think that is a problem. A lot of people have not been touched by the criminal justice system. They don't know anybody that's been involved in the criminal justice system, and it's a bit difficult to understand what's going on and to have empathy there, I think. So one thing we've really tried to do is to tell some of those stories and to help people get to know some of these people and hear firsthand the problems that they have.
Do you think many of our lawmakers understand it truly? Do you find that?
I think they're starting to. I think that there's been a shift in the past couple of years that people are more open to the idea of criminal justice reform. And I think from a fiscal or a financial standpoint, there's just a reality that we can't continue to keep going the same way unless we're going to keep appropriating more and more money to build more prisons. We have to figure out a way to manage our current population and do it in a way that benefits both the people that are coming out and also the taxpayers.
All right, we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about what's next for Beacon Impact, so stay with us.